Welcome everyone to the MLOps Live webinar series, your go-to space for discussing how to bring data science into production and unlock real business value from AI. We're thrilled you can join us today for what promises to be a compelling session. I'm Edith. I'm the head of community and open source marketing at Aguazio, an AI startup that was acquired by McKinsey in 2023. Today's topic is Beyond the Hype, GenAI trends and scaling strategies for 2025. I'm really pleased to introduce our first speaker, Svetlana Sicualar, Research VP AI, who has been at Gartner for almost 15 years. She will speak about the Gartner hype cycles for AI, the trends in GenAI, and how to find the use case that delivers value. Then I'm excited to have Yaron Haviv, co-founder and CTO at Aguazio, a familiar face here on our MLOps Live webinar sessions, where he will be discussing what it takes to productize AI and GenAI applications and how to build an AI factory. Finally, we'll wrap up with a live Q&A and discussion today. We have fantastic speakers and a great session ahead. Before we begin, just a few quick notes. This session will be recorded and a link will be shared afterwards. Don't worry if you miss anything, we've got you covered. We'll be taking your questions throughout the session, and which is always one of the highlights in these webinars. But please make sure to drop your questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to address as many as possible. You'll see some people behind the scenes, Tori and Ben, that are going to be reaching out and saying hi. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We've also added 2 polls during the session where we want to get your input. It's really valuable to hear from you, our community, in shaping future webinars. So we do encourage you to take the time to participate. We'll also be sharing these poll results live at the end of the session. Lastly, we invite you to join our MLOps Live community to keep the conversation going after the session. We'll share a link now in the chat for easy access. And without further ado, I want to hand it over to Svetlana to get us started. Thank you, Svetlana.
Thank you very much, Edith. I'm going to speak about the hype cycle for artificial intelligence. And it's not only talking about the hype cycle, but also giving you the tools to interpret what's happening in generative AI overall and in artificial intelligence. I'm not sure. Oh, here you are. First of all, what is the hype cycle? The hype cycle consists of multiple parts, and I just want to explain to you what you will see. You will see some items on the hype cycle, most of which are at the innovation trigger, which means that those are version 1, research and development, and in essence, things that mostly experts know how to run. And then there is a peak of inflated expectations where, as it's self-explanatory, expectations are beyond their real capabilities. And the most interesting part of the hype cycle is the trough of disillusionment. People say it's a dreaded part of the hype cycle. In my view, nobody can avoid it. But the key is to go through the trough fast. And a lot of technologies do go through the trough very fast. But the sign, and you might see some signs and you would appreciate of falling into the trough of disillusionment is when the negative press begins. And to anticipate what I'm going to show you, generative AI is exactly at this point. And many of you have seen negative press. And the next part is slope of enlightenment, where first best practices emerge, and there are practitioners beyond the early adopters. And finally, plateau. Plateau is not when 100% of companies are doing something, but it's about 20 to 30% of companies. Why you need this hype cycle? It's because there are many traps that people get into, such as Some of them don't have an appetite to be early adopters, but adopt too early. Some of them are the other way around. They give up too soon because they don't know how to do things. And some start late, and some are hanging on too long to the technology that is not very promising. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the actual hype cycle. This is the Gartner hype cycle for artificial intelligence. And as I told you, here's generative AI that is sitting right in the entrance to the trough of disillusionment. And the sign that it's going there is because we start seeing a lot of negative press. And now Gen AI will be going through the trough of disillusionment, and we expect that it will go fast. The way to read it is also the colors of the hype cycle, or the colors of the dot. For example, Edge AI will get to plateau of productivity in less than 2 years, and you see that's a white dot. Generative AI has a light blue dot, 2 to 5 years. I wanted to draw your attention to the light blue dots on the trigger and even the white dot on the trigger. Those are very rare on the hype cycles on the trigger, so that the technologies that are just coming to market are moving very, very fast. And 2 to 5 years by the measures of technology are very, very fast. And there's some other technologies like AGI. We still think that there is over 10 years to AGI or quantum computing. All of those are parts of the hype cycle, but the way how it works for us, we at Gartner create the dots on the hype cycles, and these dots are included into the various hype cycles, such as when people look at the AI hype cycle, they ask, oh, where is, I don't know, where is self-supervised learning? Yeah, we do have another hype cycle that is more detailed, that is the hype cycle for data science and machine learning, for example. And we have over 30 different hype cycles where generative AI is included. Therefore, you need to understand at which market you're looking. So today we're speaking about the generative AI market. And what I'm showing to you here, if you can look, it's 2022. It's not 2020. It's not the latest hype cycle. And why I'm showing it to you, I wanted to show you the dynamics. I spoke about generative AI that went through the peak of inflated expectations since 2022. Generative AI was entering the peak before the generative AI hype, before the introduction of ChatGPT in 2024. And this dynamics is also how fast those dots are expected to come to maturity or to come to fruition. And there are some other dots that are being, for example, removed from the hype cycle or added to the hype cycle. For example, we removed data labeling and annotation because it came to fruition. There is data and annotation that is data labeling and annotation that is fully available. And as such, we don't include it into the hype. There is no hype around this. Now, let me get to the current hype cycle. That is the hype cycle that you also can look at the today's trends. And the trends are not a single dot on the hype cycle, but also the dynamics among those dots, such as when we speak about generative AI, we speak also about foundation models that probably now for some reason are called large language models, even though language has a big part of it, but it's not only language models. And we speak about where those models are available from: cloud AI developer services or cloud AI services. And we have a new entry compared to 2022 where it was absent: prompt engineering. And it's immediately at the peak of inflated expectations. Last year, it was somewhere on the trigger. So prompt engineering is going very, very fast. And we have synthetic data. Synthetic data is one of the best implementations or most successful outcomes of generative AI. And synthetic data is something that works very well, and it works very well as the data, as synthetic data for other applications, as well as there is a lot of talk about synthetic data when it comes to the generative AI needs itself. And finally, composite AI. We at Gartner keep speaking about composite AI. Composite means it's not only generative AI, it's using all AI techniques whenever there is the best technique for the task that you need to perform. And I see that, for example, with the hype around DeepSeek that we saw last month, or maybe even this month, uh, we see that there is a return talks about elegant solutions rather than brute force solutions. So that's how you read the hype cycle that can tell you quite a bit about what's happening in the market. Now, the other trend I wanted to highlight is AI-ready data. Again, the dots on the hype cycle, we call them innovation profiles, are overlapping. And I left in blue, like on the previous slides, the ones that are related to generative AI, but they're also related to data, such as synthetic data or prompt engineering. And there is a very fast moving trend of AI ready data. Knowledge graphs are becoming a commonplace when it comes to AI, and especially when it comes to generative AI. So that when you plan your data strategy for AI, you need to keep in mind this disposition on the hype cycle. And we do have at Gartner a separate hype cycle for data management where you can look at much greater granularity of the current data management inventions or data management items of hype. However, I wanted to say that we are at the beginning of the new data management cycle. And if the old data management cycle is very trigger heavy, we currently see that all data management providers start thinking about how their capabilities and tools can serve AI. And that's the crux of AI-ready data. We shall see a fast move of it. We shall see, and we already see some interesting new offerings. We see some acquisitions. Large players regularly announce partnerships or announce acquisitions of data management companies. A good example will be Databricks announced partnership with SAP, where the customers will have access to all SAP data for AI purposes through the AI platform and Databricks. Or Snowflake acquired a startup called TrueEra that is a startup that provides responsible AI and explainability and model management. Now it's part of the data management offering. And Snowflake also acquired the synthetic data company. So things are moving, and you need to understand how they're moving and what to expect, and calibrate your own appetite towards what you're doing. Now, the big trend this year is AI governance. And if you think about it, if the Gen AI hype started roughly a little bit over 2 years ago, and the entire industry or the entire area of artificial intelligence was figuring out what to do about generative AI. Now it's time when the overall industry is comfortable or market is comfortable with what to do about generative AI. And the next wave is the hype around how to make generative AI safe. It's represented here by 3 different entries on the hype cycle, including responsible AI, AI TRISM. TRISM is a Gartner term that is becoming an industry term. It stands for trust, risk, and security. And sovereign AI that is related also to some number of regulations or sovereignty laws in various jurisdictions. And finally, one more trend is AI engineering. AI engineering is coming to the foreground for many different reasons. But in my view, one of the biggest reasons is that AI is being democratized. And it's going way beyond data scientists. And overall, the data science audience is not a scalable audience for the large providers. And therefore, these large providers are targeting more massive audience of AI developers or developers and engineers. And I expect that there will be more and more capabilities and offerings and all kinds of frameworks for developers who will be the main force in providing AI solutions and incorporating AI in all kinds of applications. Therefore, currently AI engineering is at the very peak of the hype. And there's of course, there is a big talk about agents. We have multi-agent systems that were actually, when we were creating this hype cycle, something like 9 months ago, it was at the beginning of trigger of the hype cycle on the trigger. Now I would put it somewhere in the peak. Agentic systems is a big subject. We also have embodied AI. It's also related to agents and how you can embody those agents in many different ways. I would move this forward. And overall, even composite AI that I didn't include into this whole equation or key profiles for AI engineering is coming because engineers also need to understand how to use the best technique for a specific task at hand, because you don't want to use massive generative AI models for anything you need to do. You need to understand what to use when and how efficient and cost efficient it is. And I wanted to draw your attention to intelligent applications. A lot of AI is also coming through applications so that the organizations don't need to do much. They get AI through the upgrade. And as you can see, model ops is another part of AI engineering. And we're here to speak probably more in this webinar about model ops and what it means. So I won't stop on it in great detail. But again, the logic is such that once you understand what you're doing, you want to scale it. And you cannot scale it without model ops and MLOps or LLM ops without all kinds of ops. And finally, I wanted to draw your attention to decision intelligence. This is our view, and it's, as a matter of fact, it's really hard for some people to understand that AI is about outcomes. It's not about only understanding of what to do, and it's about how to make the right decisions and what kind of decisions AI, new decisions AI enables. So the decision intelligence is the next iteration of artificial intelligence that allows you to have a conscious approach to decisions. And that is also becoming even more important in the light of the hype around AI agents that we saw after we already published this hype cycle for artificial intelligence. To summarize, what should you do about it? If you're looking for the immediate productivity, you should start with the right-hand side of the hype cycle and go back, because intelligent applications give you quite a bit of safe and confident way of implementation of AI. Knowledge graphs are becoming mainstream. Think about how you will organize your data, because knowledge graphs are very useful for generative AI in terms of semantics, ontology, and keep in mind that there are special algorithms, graph-specific algorithms like centrality, like the shortest path that has been used for a while, for example, in recommendations or in investigative analytics, which is all very good for generative AI, for large language models. But if you want competitive differentiation, you should start with the left-hand side and see, how can I be ahead of the market? What you need to keep in mind is where are the skills? Because if you start from the right-hand side of the market, you will have more skills. That's what we call implementers. If you look at the peak of inflated expectations, there are still only experts who can do things right to a large extent. Of course, it's a good idea for others to learn, but when it comes to the trigger, you should expect that the knowledge and the skills are scarce, and you will need to grow your own skills there, and it will take a while. So that's the idea. Edith, back to you, and I will be answering the questions later.
Thank you so much, Svetlana, for that really valuable deep dive in the Gartner hype cycles. I definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure others did as well. We do have some questions that came in that we'll address later on in the Q&A, but I do just want to take a moment now and launch the first poll, because like I said before, we really want to hear from all of you. Where are you on your Gen AI journey? Great. So if you can take a moment and answer, where are you on your Gen AI journey? Are you just learning about Gen AI? Do you have a specific use case? Have you begun building a Gen AI app? Do you need to move your Gen AI app from production to beyond the POC stage? Or do you have multiple apps that you are looking to scale? Without further ado, Yaron, I'm going to hand it over to you.
And thank you, Edith. And sorry, 1 second. Let me open the camera. So and thanks for Svetlana for covering all the views around hype cycles in the different disciplines. What we want to talk about today is about what it really takes to build an AI and what are some of the key challenges. So, you know, on the left, what you could see is the different things you think are required for building a Gen AI application, anywhere from creating the data, you know, working on the RAG system, working on agent or multi-agent technologies, and so on, building a workflow, in some cases even fine-tuning a model. So that's on the left. But as you think about productizing those applications, then there are some more challenges that exist beyond just the ones that we mentioned in operationalizing those Gen AI applications. So the first around data management, security, governance, all the aspects of scaling, the work, creating versions of the data, creating data pipelines to crunch the data and build high quality data with versioning and all of that. Ensure data security, applying authentication, authorization for every aspect of the data, adding guardrails to verify we don't have hallucinations or bias or breaches of privacy and so on. So these things are usually an afterthought. But anyway, when we're building an application, we're also all the other aspects of building an application. You want to create abstractions and modularity in those applications. So instead of working with a specific LLM API, maybe create an abstraction layer where you can interchange the LLM, or the same thing for vector storage or any other asset that you're working with. So generalizing the API so you don't get locked in, and you provide yourself some flexibility, whether you're developing on your laptop or in a cloud service or on premises. Other aspects of testing and CI/CD and logging, I'm not going to go through the entire list, but there's an exhaustive list of aspects. And finally, we have the live operations, which is how do you really manage those applications. We need to create monitoring solutions. We need to monitor anything from the traditional things like consumptions of GPUs, CPUs, latency, performance, but also things like hallucination and bias, and how much is the application really meeting its goals. So what we see is that the building the right side operationalization is actually more challenging than building the left side. In many cases, it takes more engineering effort and more people. The advantage of the building of the right side is that it's not specific to one use case. It can actually be deployed across multiple use cases. So we create this modularity, we create those monitoring services and CI/CD pipelines and data pipelines, not for a single application, but rather for multiple applications. And this is how we can create a platform that allows us to build multiple use cases with the same engineering effort. Next slide, please, Edith. So as we go through what are the key guidelines when we build such platforms that we need to think about, first is around consolidation and collaboration. So we have different teams in the organization, data scientists, data engineers, machine learning engineers, and so on. We need to make sure they all work with the same set of tools, and also they can actually share things that they build. If someone built a solution to monitor a model or to create some RAG, etc., we don't have to have different departments build exactly the same thing. So we want to create collaboration across different teams or across different projects. The second aspect is to try and automate as much as possible, because we want to be able to create multiple versions of the same applications. So every time we create a new version, we want automation to kick in, conduct the tests, verify the data is okay, verify all the quality of the application is good, build the containers and all the other aspects for automation. So this is where automation is key to give us this flexibility of being agile, being able to build more applications faster with less resources. Finally, the critical element is observability. Observability is ability to watch everything that's going on, whether it's the consumption of resources, the data, where's the sources of data, the quality of data, the model behavior, hallucinations, drift in the model, accuracy, and so on. So we want to have all of those things being observed, and we want to plug within the framework that we're building all those observability points, so we don't have to ask data scientists or software engineers to add observability every time again and again to new applications. We want observability to be automatically integrated into our code. Other aspects you could see here are obviously elasticity and scalability, because we are consuming GPUs and expensive resources. We want to be able to leverage those resources in an elastic way. So if we train a model or fine-tune a model, we want to be able to get those GPUs, use them, and decommission the resources. And also, if we have more requests, we want to be able to scale out the computation and scale it down once we have less requests and less usage. And the final element is the openness of the architecture. We see hundreds of new LLMs being introduced and fine-tuned LLMs and so on, and each one is very good in specific tasks. So we want to make sure that we have the ability to plug in and out different LLMs, vector storage frameworks, cloud providers, infrastructure, and so on. So this requires us to think about modularity and an open architecture that can encompass different technologies under the same umbrella. Next, Edith. So if we try to general, what we need to do is anything from data management, taking the data, curating the data, preparing the data, ingesting the data, and so on, building those pipelines for creating the models or fine-tuning the model, testing the prompts, building the applications, and testing the application as a whole. And finally, we want to have then we want to have the deployment automation. Once we have the different artifacts, the fine-tuned model, the application, the prompts, all those assets, essentially deploy them automatically as a version into the system. And the final aspect is to be able to monitor all the different assets and models and applications and prompts and so on to verify that it's meeting our expectation. So these are the 4 stages in every different application. Next, Deep. So one of the things that we prepared, we worked with different clients and we said, what do we really need to have sort of the platform for AI that supports all the different workloads in the same place? This is sort of an exhaustive list that I worked with various clients on, what they need to have. This could come from different, cloud providers, different projects, different open source tools, but these are essentially the checkboxes that you need to have. I won't go into one by one, but we essentially have many various categories. One is the data management, all the aspect of managing the data, data pipelines, security of data, lineage, and so on, cataloging. We have building the models. So we need notebooks in some cases. Some people don't work with notebooks. We want to have orchestration of those ML pipelines. We want to be able to train or fine tune and so on. Tracking, experiment tracking. We have the application development and DevOps. You have all those aspects there. Then we have specific services around AI and Gen AI, like hosting the model, LLM gateways, caching, managing the sessions, managing the prompts, and so on. And the final aspects are monitoring, and again, the monitoring could be broken into subcategories like resource monitoring, financial operations, cost monitoring, responsible AI, all the aspects of making sure our models behave responsibly, monitoring the model, drift accuracy, and so on, and also making sure that those models really generate, or those applications really generate business value. And there are other aspects like auditing, resource management, and etc. Next. Another valuable thing that we've seen with clients is there are many repetitive patterns. So instead of building, those things every time from scratch, you could have a team that essentially builds reusable assets like those things that you see here, around the data manipulation, integration with data, like fine-tuning the model, or different prompts and agents or multi-agents for specific tasks, pipelines for building highly used applications like RAG and agents. So you could do those patterns once, put them in a Git, and have people consume it from a Git, create a new project, and essentially start from something that's already solid and working, and best practices. Next. So this is just an example of a project we built with a client. So the ability to build those workflows of applications, being able to inject things like guardrails and more intelligent operators into the flow. That can also be done with coding through various Python classes that are being used. And part of the nice things about all those classes is instrumenting them and adding the observability into those classes. So you don't need to add additional code, and that allows you those dashboards You can see the consumption, the usage, the accuracy, the bias, and so on. So this is that's it, and good.
Wow, thank you so much, Yaron. That was really fantastic. So we got a couple questions in the chat, and I really want to have time to have an in-depth discussion and answer some of your questions live. But before we do that, as you saw already, we are going to take a little break and ask you another one of our last poll. So if you can please take a minute and let us know. I'm going to launch it right now. What are your biggest challenges when scaling Gen AI? I know there are many, but we're curious to hear from you. Is it focusing on the risk mitigation? Is cost optimization something that you and your team, are taking into consideration when scaling and using Gen AI? Is it about your team and the size and upscaling and everything related to your team? Or is it more infrastructure, architecture, struggles that you're trying to mitigate? Or are you not currently implementing Gen AI today, in your business? So if you can take a moment, please, and let us know what your challenges are when scaling Gen AI, that would be, or your biggest challenge. That would be really, really helpful. See, a couple people are still filling it out. So we're going to give it another few seconds. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to turn on our videos and dive into a really fantastic discussion and answer some of your questions. Okay. So without further ado, Svetlana and Yaron, if you don't mind turning on your cameras, that would be fantastic. Okay, so we're going to start off with going back to the poll that we just asked about challenges. So would love to hear Yaron, Svetlana, what are the biggest challenges that you feel enterprises are facing with Gen AI implementation? I know it's a huge challenge, and a lot of different businesses are trying to figure out how to implement Gen AI. So what would you say are the biggest challenges and how you've seen them overcome them?
So yeah, I'll let you start.
Okay. I can say that things are changing and things are moving, but according to our survey, the top challenges include data availability and quality, security threats, getting the talent required, and deploying and operationalizing AI, and integration of AI in other applications or systems. It is quite a generic answer because everybody eventually faces their own challenges. It's not one size fits all, and it also depends on where they're standing with their understanding of AI. In other words, we see that those who have experience with implementing AI also are more successful with implementing generative AI. And currently, from what I see, security does get to the foreground as well as AI governance and understanding how to implement AI safety. And the overall, for the companies who have been with AI in production for a while or for some time, the biggest challenge is how to scale and how to achieve the enterprise-wide adoption.
Thank you, Svetlana. Yaron, was there something you wanted to add there? You're muted, though.
Sorry for that. I'm saying I think those are the right points. In addition, I think we're seeing people struggling with moving things to production because it's one thing to build something that a chatbot looks nice and so on, but productizing, putting all the guardrails, making it scale, all the cost aspects associated with it, and so on. This is a way more challenging. And I think people that want to go beyond a certain single project, being able to create, let's call it a chassis, that being able to implement multiple use cases with a single platform versus doing everything as a one-off is another key challenge that we've seen.
Thank you. We're going to take one step back, and I also really want to hear from you both. Svetlana, if you can kick it off with, what are some of the main use cases that you're seeing in the market today? Because I know there are a lot, but what would you say the main use cases are?
The main use cases are, first of all, generating code. This is something which does have high productivity and is quantifiable and provable. The other one is service desk, and all kinds of chatbots. In principle, I think that the biggest impact from generative AI will be using generative AI as a wrapper to any other technology. Because if you have a good user experience, a good UI type conversational wrapper to any of your bread and butter technologies, your bread and butter technology will be available to many more people who will benefit from this technology. So that's where I think will be a great impact. And of course, industry-wise, it's life sciences. We see some incredible progress in life sciences. I'm not an expert, and that's why I can't really explain what it is, but clearly all life sciences are in, and they're creating molecules, proteins, they accelerate drug development, and by virtue of having AI at their R&D and at the core of their businesses, they also are accelerating some other parts of their business, like supply chain, for example.
Thank you, Svetlana. Yaron, is there anything you wanted to add on there? Or should we move on to the next?
No.
Okay. So something that we've been asked on, I think, every single one of our webinars and in our community as well, something you touched upon, Svetlana, in your earlier slides, is the big concerns of enterprises in risk, right? What kinds of mitigation strategies would you recommend? What types of guardrails do you feel like should be put in place now and in the future, looking forward in 2025?
I would say that the goal of the guardrails is to support AI progress. And often guardrails are over-engineered and they slow AI progress down. And I see it time and again. Therefore, the question is, how do you support safe AI innovation? And that's the overall approach. And for most organizations, the entry point is risk management. And if they have some risk management divisions or even data governance type divisions, they extend those guardrails to AI and add AI specific considerations. And the AI specific considerations are driven by the fact that AI is probabilistic. And that's hard for many people to understand, that it's not 100% accuracy. And even reaching 95% of accuracy is very, very difficult. Even going from 90 to 95% is extremely difficult. This means in that good scenario that 5% will be exceptions. And what drives those guardrails is the ability to ask the questions, what might go wrong in terms of those 5% of exceptions. Or in some cases, it could be 40% of exceptions or 20% of exceptions. And that requires a multidisciplinary approach where people who are experts in security, in privacy, in regulations, in data management, in applications, ask the question, what can be an exception and what might go wrong about those exceptions in our specific situation? Because if you implement low-risk use cases, you're fine, or more or less fine. You need to understand, though, what the low-risk use cases and define levels of criticality for those use cases, levels of criticality for the different use cases, so that you focus on higher risk use cases and you don't slow down at the beginners. So that's more or less, again, the high level answer. Of course, there could be many more details.
Yeah, I think you're definitely spot on. That it's very much individualized on your, the industry that you're in, the company, the use case. And I know that we've seen, from our side, there's specific, industries that, risk is more on the top of their mind, financial services and so on. Yaron, do you have any like specific examples where you've evaluated and identified a specific risk and how the guardrails that you put in place that you think would be applicable to this audience?
Yeah, so for example, in some banking applications, we created a bot, and the bot generate recommendations to the clients, and it's not allowed in certain places that the bot will make, for example, financial recommendations about buying and selling decisions. So you can put a guardrail that verify that the bot is not making actual suggestions, it's not violating the policy of that specific country or regulation. So we've seen, essentially creating through LLM as a judge or some other techniques, being able to evaluate the answer of the bot and making sure it conforms with the regulations in that specific industry.
Thank you. There's a really specific question here for you, Yaron. Would you give some use cases where integrating of knowledge graph and LLMs may be a good fit?
Yeah, I think part of the challenge that we have with the LLMs is the hallucination, is that they may generate data which is fake data, and I think this is where knowledge graphs could come into play, where you can verify that the knowledge is really coming from a stable information base and not just generated by the LLM.
Thank you. Another one for you, Yaron, that I see is coming in. So you spoke a lot about, creating a robust solution and scaling. So the question is, how would you characterize the kind of organization that would warrant such a robust solution capability that you were discussing?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I guess the question is, what type of an organization would invest and warrant scaling on such a lot, like investing and scaling on such a large scale, and the types of customers and clients that you've worked with in the past that have appreciated, used, and found value in the offering?
I think the key is to understand, like, first, do they generate more than a single use case? If it's one use case, then you don't need lots of automation. The second would be like, how complex is the solution, how many moving parts, and so on. So that's also important to understand. Based on that, understand, because if they only have one project, it's not too complicated, maybe there's no need for such a advanced infrastructure. If you're trying to create multiple use cases, or the use cases require more robustness and so on, so you want to apply more framework around it.
Thank you. Okay, I see another question here, Svetlana, for you. So you spoke a little bit when you were going through your slides about the different types of hype cycles. So the question is, where is agentic AI on the hype cycle?
I thought I typed the answer, but I will answer again. Agentic AI is a multi-agent systems, and it's in the middle of the trigger. I mentioned them at the beginning in my talk, so that I think that from back then it will be at the peak of the hype right now. By the time we publish the new hype cycle, it might fall off the peak, but it's a pretty substantial hype.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think maybe also I think agentic AI is very exciting. There are many interesting things you can build with those different agents that interface with various services, that think by, as experts, that write code and so on. I've seen pretty intriguing use cases. I'm still pretty concerned about the stability and robustness of those solutions. I think there's still some more maturity to gain, and use it with caution.
I would like to invite you to explore our website at aguazio.com, where you'll find past webinar sessions, along with a wealth of additional resources like blogs and case studies, best practices. And we, as always, would love to hear your feedback as well. And I do want to take a moment and say a really big thank you to Svetlana and Yaron for your excellent presentations, for the incredible discussion that we had. And of course, a heartfelt thanks to all of you for taking the time, energy to participate and join our live session. So we look forward to seeing you at our next session, and have a great day.